tonight because I'm the town hall.
We are live.
We are live instead of financed. We have just been giving a lot to think about. I wanted to go back to where are we in our thinking? What do we need to know? I think that my one note says, I'd like to know how many schools that are capable of holding 450 kids we have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably a query to the Department of Ed.
And I think I just sent you what you were looking for.
And I'd love to be able to crosshatch that with the school construction report.
What that presentation made me come to right now, my current thinking is I feel like the first and most important thing is districts. I feel like everything after that, that's when decisions will be made by a new, more efficiently configured district about, and that's the timeline where we have solidify our foundation formula. And that's where they can start thinking about schools at the more local level than here.
And I will supposed to have lunch with the head of education this week. Stood me up last week, which is how we got behind. But I will see if they can give us an update just as to what they're thinking in the way of school size, district size, which will give us something to think about in the way of a funding formula. Because I think we saw some of the levers we can pull today. If we decrease the school size, if we decrease the class size, and in some of these, we are not going to have a choice because they are small by necessity, not small by choice. But I would think that's probably less than 5 or 10. If I built 2 nice elementary schools, I could probably take 9 elementaries and put them in those 2 schools just here. Mostly a nice flat paved roads. And probably for many of them not have that much longer distance. But if we could do that, and the more of these ideal sizes, the more we will cut down on the cost overall. And if you can get some that might even be bigger, you can offset the cost of those that can't get bigger because they are literally in a valley or on the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Well, this is committee.
Okay. It seems a little weird that
They
we're missing that.
I know.
Now we don't.
I believe Senator Beck told me he's meeting with the pro temp.
I think we have to go off live because we don't have.
And so, well, I don't think we have to go off or just can't do anything to get it.
No idea where our
Well, the committee is functioning. They don't choose to be part of it.
Exactly.
That's their decision. We have a forum.
What I was gonna say was just, and I know I'm not saying anything you all don't know, but it seems like what needs to happen is some kind of immediate property tax relief, which I know we've talked about. I think reference-based pricing might be something that could be used for that, but we had a great presentation in Health and Welfare today about healthcare costs and premium costs and their effect on job loss and then what job loss does to a community. And
The whole local
oh my God, it was fascinating.
I'm just waiting to see.
This guy Cooper from Yale, it was fantastic.
It was very good.
It was so good, but all I was gonna say was if we could find a way to do some immediate tax relief and then put together, as we've been saying, like a 2 to 10 year plan that actually makes sense and will not throw our system into chaos. And will end up being a cost savings and maybe, increased equity, which is what apparently the goal is.
I don't think we can keep, if we're looking at like a 5-year before we'll see any real impact. And probably it will be 20 years when we pay off schools, 20 to 30. It will be a while. What we haven't talked about in here is with the larger classes, the money the school saves can be put in to better education, to more class opportunities. If you've got enough students, you can afford to have a class in a foreign language in middle school.
Yeah.
It's the paying the teacher to teach 5 kids that gets very expensive.
Yeah.
And so it is less costly per class. And some schools may actually be able to do more than 2 science classes in senior year in high school.
I agree with Senator Gulick that what voters were very concerned about was property taxes, and that we need to focus on immediate solutions for property tax reductions or relief. And that I agree with Senator Chittenden that then setting up a logical plan to get to something like the governor is proposing, not exactly what he's proposing, but like in that sort of realm. Because what I don't think Vermonters want is for us to make uninformed or not fully informed decisions about how to organize our schools, doing it without input from the public and without all of the data that we need, and then creating chaos in our school system.
Yeah.
I don't think that is what we should be doing. I think we need to be setting up, getting the right information, getting the right people at the table to make those decisions. And in the meantime, focusing on some of the funding and taxation levers that we have, while we're transitioning to a new system that hopefully will be more efficient and more effective and maybe more equitable. So I worry that this sort of sense of hurry up, we got to make a decision is going to, in the long run, be detrimental to our education system. So I want to be very deliberate with what we're doing.
I could add that I agree. If I could add my previous comment, what I would like is visuals. And if you just think about this year, we're in February through until December, then think about next year. Let's say at the end of May, we come out, and I don't think it's going to happen. We come out and we decide 10 new districts, 15 new districts, 20, whatever. We decide on new districts. Even if that gets passed July 1st, it wouldn't take effect until probably next year when we would have elections. If this timeline would work, those elections would have to be either next town meeting day, right in the middle of when we're still working on this foundation formula, which I think is going to be very lengthy. And then we elect people to serve on a body without clarity as to how that new formula is going to work. So what I'm envisioning is where we need to set our course is the elections for new districts. If we agree that we could do better by our kids with fewer than 119 districts, but those new districts might actually, we would elect leaders in the spring of 2027. So that's just putting out 2 years just to elect the leaders with the plans to then, by then, that would give us the rest of this session as well as in the second half of this biennium.
Being
School board directors of the new the leaders, the elected leaders for the new
Well,
district.
first we have to decide if we are in fact going
Correct.
to go to a 5-person board,
Well,
or are
whatever.
we
Oh,
going
whatever,
to
yeah.
go, all right. And we need to talk about school capacity and where we have schools that can hold X number of students and where we don't.
But did you follow my timeline?
Yeah,
So-
yeah,
I think, and I think they're going, we have, you know, this rock in a hard place. I don't think the general fund can come up with $100 million every year to buy down the property tax rate. And I'm concerned that if we keep buying it down every year and keeping people from feeling any pain, that they will lose their motivation to change. I don't think we can afford to keep funding schools with classes of less than 10 students. And we're talking schools with grades with less than 10 students.
Yeah, and I don't think
Just right off Chittenden County,
I don't think that anyone is saying that. I think what people are saying is, we all agree that change needs to happen. It's really how we make that change and what the timeline and the order of operations are.
right,
And so the governor's bill actually has an order of operations that could be workable. I think it's too fast.
Yeah.
And I think that their districts make no sense. So, and the foundation formula needs work. But what the governor's proposal does is actually move the elections to November.
there is
There are November
no
elections.
rezoning of the
No,
voting.
November of 26. So the next time there's a biennial election for all these state offices, they would elect school boards. So I think that that's a really fast timeline. And, but, you know, there is a transition for at least the governance and this bill. I'm concerned about that for sure, but I'm also concerned about the transition for the financing, and that I don't think is well laid out in the
I
bill.
think the idea that's going to come to us is we will transition to a foundation formula as early as this year, next year at the latest.
No, that's not the governor's proposal.
Okay, I have not, I just got it.
It's in 2 years. Yeah, it's in FY
Well,
20.
we're gonna have to figure out how to do that transition. But we need to know what the decision is on the district size, the governance size, before we can figure out the taxes, and before we can figure out the spending over and above the foundation formula, because we've got to know the taxing capacity of each district, which gets in to Brigham. So hopefully we can get knowledge under our belts and have something set up in theory. This is what we're gonna do. And then know what levers we can pull to align the funding.
I would suggest, among other things, that whatever we decide to do, we decide to do it now. And by now, I mean while we're here before we go home.
Yes,
Even if we stay late to do it, I think we should treat this as an emergency. Because it is an emergency. It's an emergency, particularly for taxpayers. And we can't continue to bumble along with another study committee or thought process that extends this any longer. We've got to make decisions. Hard though they may be, and they may not be the right decision. You can always reverse them at some point later, but we need to do it now and move forward.
we need to tell people, this is what we're doing. This is the steps, you know, this is
This
the
is what we're gonna
roadmap.
do.
This is how we're gonna get there.
This is the
It's going
time frame
to
that we're gonna use to
take
do it.
X number of years
I agree.
Yeah.
Agree with your sense of urgency. I just don't think we can make all the decisions now. I feel like I want a Gantt chart. I want a Gantt chart, the decision.
What is a Gantt chart?
So it's just an overlay of tasks that you're gonna do over a period of time, and you can start to see how they interest.
Let's make one of
those.
I'm
One of
doing
those.
that. We're starting right now.
Yay.
We come back from town meeting, I'm gonna have a Gantt chart.
Okay.
That would
With
be awesome.
immediate property tax relief.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if you were the
Well, it
room
is
when we
in
were
the
saying this, is that the
budget.
first thing, that the
But-
thing that the people said,
That's some of it on.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about evidence-based pricing or some other
Oh,
legal.
we're working on that.
But not just the.
But if we close some local hospitals, because we do it quickly,
We have more room for more students then.
we will have a worse situation. I mean, it's the new panacea. I'm not, we need to look into whether or not it will actually work. And I wish we
don't
could do
disagree, but
more
I'm
of
just
that.
throwing out possible.
That is a thing we could do. It won't impact this year. Those rates are already being submitted. And we need to make sure that we don't put anybody, our insurance company or our hospitals under.
Right.
And I
Pulling
wish
things
we
out of
could
the
get
other fund.
focused on that. I
Yeah.
don't think there is a reference-based pricing coming our way. I know we have two bills, which, yes, we might ask about.
Martine and I have developed.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I'm gonna see if I can get the bill that got left on the wall years ago.
yeah, exactly. That's not a bad idea.
Resurrect.
That's actually a good idea. But moving some things out of the ed fund, that would be another way to
Yes,
instant property
And
tax relief.
I have a few ideas about that. I mean, I think that, and Senator Brock, I don't know if you were in the room when we started the conversation, but like the first thing we need to do is focus on how can we relieve some property tax burden or whatever pressures next year and the years after. And there are different levers we can pull. And in the meantime, make sure that we have a thoughtful and well reasoned and well-informed plan for transforming schools. That if we rush it, we might end up doing more damage. And it, than we want. I mean, we rushed the pupil waiting bill through the legislature, and you and I both know there were things that we wanted to fix in that bill, and we never got an opportunity to do it because it was rushed. I don't
Well-
want to do that with this. We
No, I
need to make
understand.
sure that it makes sense, so we're not creating chaos or
But what we have
unintended
to do is
consequences.
make sure that we don't take 2 years to do it and have to have two study committees to argue about it. We've got to put our nose to the grindstone and do it.
Yeah,
Not
we're- I-
talk about do it, but do it.
This is what we have to, before we go home, have that roadmap. This is where we're going by X date. This is where we're going by next X date. We are going to have to find some money. If this is in fact going to take 5 to 6 years,
And hopefully not. Take that.
hopefully not, but the ability
Goals
of the general fund to continue to find an additional $100 million every year to bail.
That's not the only lever we have.
No, I think, well, we could raise some money on a temporary basis. We could, but we're gonna have to figure out where we're going. And, at least these are the districts. This who's going to be in them. These are the schools in those districts, if any, that have the capacity to hold these students. This is the capacity we need in those districts. And then we're going to have to, at some point, figure out how we are going to build, because we will have to build. And I think the concept is there as to how we will pay for the bill. I don't know that anyone's asked the school districts about that. consent. That we will need their cooperation and the cooperation of the voters. And we're gonna have to go sell it.
The building, I think, is gonna happen after the school district's reform, which is after the school district elect, we elect the new electors, the new school board members, which they were talking, then they have to like dive into it, and that's gonna be a year, so it's gonna be 3 years, but at the end of this session, I hope we all, as a legislature, agree that we want to flatten school governance. So we want fewer school districts just to start to achieve economies of scale throughout Vermont. And I'm sensing consensus around the foundation formula consistent with the rest of the country. And if we set the course for that, maybe that gets us on a path and we keep working on it. You come back next
Right, and
session.
I did we were talking to Julia about a phase-in plan, so we're not flopping.
No, I don't think, I haven't heard anyone in this room talk about plopping or any other committee.
Transportation, there was one year we just had de minimis as our theme, where it was ad valorem. This
Oh,
year,
wow.
it's the flop. This is the flop.
Martine told me she liked that word that I kept using inadvertently. I didn't realize I was using it, but it was like, you can't plop a new formula on the current. So,
No,
you know,
you can't.
so how can we phase in? Every time
Yes.
you change a formula, you have to phase
Phase
into
it
the
in.
new formula.
Or not, but you need to be clear
That's the
about what
way
you do.
to phase in, otherwise you have a problem. And this was what we had in the people waiting bill. We had a phase in the Senate. The House took the phase in out and look what happened. We have to phase into a new formula. If you do it all in one fell swoop, you cause problems. Yeah, okay, I think I.
We're being called,
Okay.
we're being called upstairs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's,
For-
no,
For consent.
yeah.
Token session, the name.
How come the lights?
They're just
Yeah,
going
go
to
on.
announce, no one has to go, it's an executive session. They're just going to announce the committee of conference for the budget adjustment. No action, they just have to
Will
announce.
you really talk about?
I suppose we could object, but I don't think anyone will.